Vikings can clinch the NFC North this week. So what's the dream playoff scenarios look like? And previewing Mike White and the New York Jets and the latest on Cat and the Wolves injury scare. We're breaking it all down. It's coming up next on Superior Sports Talk.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. Now it's Superior Sports Talk with KARE 11 sports anchor Reggie Wilson and Luke Inman. It's 30 minutes every day, and it's all the Minnesota sports you need. It's Superior Sports Talk, and it starts now.
Back in the lab, Reggie and Luke back at it. Another episode, Superior Sports Talk, presented by Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's your daily 30-minute breakdown, everything Minnesota sports, which you can now find streaming on your Roku or Amazon Fire Stick devices. Just look out for our Locked On Sports Minnesota app there as well. That's Reggie Wilson on Twitter, at Reggie Wilson TV. You can check him out every night up on KARE 11. Tuesday, Reg, got a fresh coat of white snow on the ground this morning. How you feeling?
Something about seeing the snow just is depressing, man. I know people are like, oh, but it's so pretty. I'm like, no, it's ghetto. Okay. That's what it is. But no, it's wintertime, so it's to be expected. But, when you start seeing the snow on the ground, that's when it seems like the sports matter a little bit more. And so that's kind of where we're at right now.
So much to get into. You're right. First, remember, follow along, Locked On Minnesota YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button. Leave us a comment. And on Twitter, give us a follow. It's at Locked On MIN. And remember, we're a podcast too, free and available, all platforms, Spotify, Apple, you name it, we got it. Tons of great choices over there. You got the Ron Johnson Show, you got the Football Party, and more. Your one-stop shop with endless Vikings talk. Do us a favor, hit the subscribe button and drop us a 5-star review. Speaking of YouTube, every day posting that new poll up on the Locked On Minnesota YouTube community page. Yesterday, I asked fans, what's your biggest worry for the Vikings come playoff time? 4 options: the run defense, the pass defense, any big key name injuries that still remain, or this pesky missed extra points, missed kick thing we got going on. Here were the results. Pass and run defense go bang, bang, 1 and 2. Pass defense get a whopping 66%. Surprised only 10% chose the missed kicks. And the health of big names, last place at 9%. My real quick take, Reg, then I want your opinion. This defense, they rank 30th or worse in multiple categories right now. And when I look at those 2 losses, both blowouts, all I remember is getting blown out at the line of scrimmage. Eagles and Cowboys, they were able to run all over us. Now you watch Jalen Hurts break the Eagles' record for quarterback rush yards. That worries me. At the same time, you're talking about a franchise that has lost 2 massive playoff games because of a missed kick. One of them, to go to the Super Bowl. And knowing how every one of these games has been decided by 1 score or less, every single point is critical for this Vikings team. So run defense, cleaning up the missed extra points, that's vital for me. When you looked at this poll, what were your quick thoughts, Reg?
Yeah, I think the defense kind of scares me as well, but they play that bend but don't break style. But something that we said earlier in the season is like, man, they look mighty bendy at times. Mm-hmm. And so I think they kind of cleaned that up a little bit, and then we kind of saw the last 2 games, things kind of get a little hazy there. And so that I think it's the pass defense too for me that is a little tough. You don't necessarily worry about the run defense as much, especially when they get Dalvin Tomlinson back. But that pass defense, man, like they came out, punched the Patriots in the mouth, went down and scored a touchdown. And then I think it took the Patriots like 2 or 3 plays and they were in the end zone as well. And it was just like, oh, okay, all right. And, outside of like Patrick Peterson, Harrison Smith, it's scary. Now you're talking about Andrew Booth Jr. getting injured, and he had a meniscus injury surgery yesterday, and so now you're a little concerned. I think they're really excited to get Cam Dantzler back from that ankle injury when he is available, and kind of shore up some things. But that pass defense, man, it's a little porous.
Yeah, remember, go check out the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube page. Every day, posting a new poll. Hit the subscribe button so you never miss a beat. Go comment. Let us know what you think. Over 2,400 votes yesterday, over 30 comments. Love to see it. All right, to football we go. You just kind of mentioned it. I just want to touch on it real quick. Breaking news yesterday. Let's start here. Andrew Booth Jr., Vikings second-round pick, going to undergo surgery on his knee. Likely out for the year. KOC didn't commit to that. We're going to see how the injury goes. He said yesterday, Kwesi's first draft, not off to a hot start. Top 2 picks land on the IR. Never really played much this first season at all. And even outside of that, haven't got a ton of production for many others either. Thoughts on the class? Any hope for optimism for the future, for next year, moving forward? And more importantly, what this means for the team's secondary down the final stretch and into the playoffs?
Man, it's tough, man, especially when you talk about a safety, a guy who's supposed to be, one of your more athletic people out there on the field, broke his leg. You want to see how he comes back from that. Is he still explosive? Is he still able to, run as fast as he was before the injury? And he was still kind of learning the defense as well. Like, it just kind of derailed some things. Andrew Booth Jr., I believe this is the third injury or so that he's dealt with since he's been a member of the Vikings, and it hasn't even been a full year since he's joined the team in the draft. I kind of worry about that a little bit. You think about those type of guys. Caleb Evans, he's dealt with the concussion. He looks like he's going to be a very, solid player for them, but it's still too early to tell on him. Brian Asamoah, he's just in a situation where he's stuck behind 2 studs right now with Kendricks and Hicks. And it's just like, well, not really sure what he has. He has contributed on special teams. I think it's tough, man. I think it's really tough. And especially when you have high hopes for a guy. When you see a guy like Andrew Booth Jr. drop to you in the second round, I think there were a lot of medical questions about whether or not he would be healthy enough to make it. And we've kind of seen sometimes like guys who may be getting labeled injury prone or whatever you want to call it in college, and then they come to the NFL and they're able to just ball out. I know there was a concern with Adrian Peterson with his injuries in college, and then he gets to Minnesota, he just kind of becomes this Iron Man and becomes this Iron Man in the NFL for years and years and years. And so it's a tough thing when it comes to some of these draft picks. I think they drafted with the best intentions, and that's what makes the draft so hard, man. Like, you just never know how these guys are going to hit. There are some guys that, get drafted 5th, 6th, 7th round, and they become studs in the league. And you're like, well, how the heck who missed the ball on that one? And it's just like, sometimes you just can't tell. I watched Terry McLaurin in college. I covered the Buckeyes for a couple seasons, and I watched him in college, and I thought he was a solid receiver. I thought he might, turn into maybe like a possession type guy in the league. Now all of a sudden he's Scary Terry, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And you're just like, oh, wow. Like, I thought Paris Campbell was going to be like the can't miss guy in the NFL. He's dealt with injuries, and, he's kind of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 in Indianapolis right now. He's a burner, but he's not a guy that is incredibly impacting games. And you just never know with these players, man. And I think it's tough, and it's easy to criticize because you see what's happening. Now we've kind of been able to pull the label back a little bit and see, what we're digesting. And now that makes it a little bit more difficult. And you're like, oh man, the Vikings, they messed up with these picks. Oh, it wasn't a good draft. It's like, well, it's a little early, 1, and 2 is just like, it's such a toss up, man. You do the best you can, especially with Kwesi trading back 20 picks. And it just hasn't worked out so far.
One thing I've learned working with you, Terry McLaurin, that's your boy. Scary Terry is Reggie's guy. Any chance he gets, he's bringing up Scary Terry. Back to Andrew Booth. You got to remember, top 15 talent, You think he just fell for no reason? Of course not. This was his thing. As you mentioned, guy just cannot stay healthy. Going all the way back to high school, if you look at the scouting report, he even said that himself. He drops all the way to the 40s because teams knew they were taking a huge gamble on the injury concerns. Listen, I hope both him and Scene can come back healthy next year, make a huge impact, because if not, that's just a huge punch to the gut in Kwesi's first draft resume. The good news is, from everything we've seen, he did hit on one cornerback later in the 4th round. That's a Caleb Evans. And if they can get him back for the final stretch, it would just make the world a difference, given just how thin they are. Because as of right now, you're talking about Duke Shelley and Ty McGowan lining up in that dime defense. Not what you want come playoff time. So hopefully a Caleb Evans comes back this week from that concussion protocol. All right, let's talk some Benny and the Jets. Elite, top-notch defense. In fact, PFF's #1 defense in the entire NFL. On the flip side, you got the 32nd ranked offense. When you just look at this Jets team on paper, what do you see? What scares you the most? How do the Vikes come away with another victory Sunday?
Robert Saleh, man, he just gets those guys ready to play. And they've kind of taken on his mentality. He's a guy that runs the bleachers before the game. He gets all fired up on the sideline. He's just a excitable guy. And I think this team kind of plays with his enthusiasm. And when you talk about that defense, I was cautioned, we made our predictions on Vikings Extra on Sunday, and I was cautioned to, I don't know. I didn't want to, people were like, oh, it's the Jets. They're going to, whoop them or, whatever. No, I think this game is going to be playing out just like some of the other games did, maybe going down to the wire. I think it's a little scary. I want to see this matchup between Sauce and Justin Jefferson. Sauce he's taking his lumps a little bit. He played against Stephon Diggs earlier this season. He's a guy that is leading all categories in rookie defensive player of the year. And I think he is going to be a top flight bona fide cornerback in this league for years to come. That being said, Justin Jefferson is one of, if not the best wide receiver in the game right now. And, we've seen him against some of the better corners in the league. I think he still has something that he wants to prove that, hey, it doesn't matter who guards me, I'm going to get mine. And that's going to be an interesting matchup on Sunday to see those two go at each other. And I think just from a defensive line standpoint as well, we've seen the offensive line of the Vikings struggle a little bit. They hope to get Christian Darrisaw back because he helps tremendously. But you talk about that line, Cousins got sacked once, I think, against the Patriots. And that was a really good showing for them. But this Jets defensive line it's a little scary, man. It's a little scary. You talk about Quentin Williams along that front, and those guys are playing hard, and they've got some really good pieces there along that defensive front, and that's going to give Cousins and that offensive line some fits. So I think that's going to be a really tough matchup for them on Sunday, and I don't think it's going to be anything easy as maybe some would think, just because the offense is not humming like you would think it is. Now, the offense is improved after that week, but I told people, it's the Bears, man. The Bears aren't necessarily playing for anything but pride right now. They didn't have the type of team that could keep up with the Jets when you're talking about starting a backup quarterback. No disrespect to Trevor Siemian. He hurt himself in the pregame warm-up and still, gave it a go. But I think they had a better chance with Justin Fields back there. They didn't have Fields, and so they weren't able to sustain things as much as they would like to, which then gives the other team the advantage, and we saw what they did to take advantage. Some of those I saw a pass to Garrett Wilson that was kind of behind him a little bit, but he was still able to corral it, and he kind of just went off. I said on Sunday, from all the disgruntled receivers that the Jets have, they were all pleased on Sunday. You had Garrett Wilson with multiple touchdowns. Elijah Moore even got in on the action with the touchdown himself. And so that Jets team is tough. They're 7-4 for a reason. It's going to be interesting to see that matchup at the bank on Sunday, but you do expect the best from the Vikings as well.
Yeah, the whole thing feels a lot like the Patriots game. Kind of the same blueprint, right, for both teams. Elite defense, and you hope your offense can do just enough. Both the Patriots and Jets got the same thing kind of going on. They're obviously hoping the quarterback change can give them a spark offensively, and versus the Bears, they looked a lot better. And I think it fits how they're built, the Jets that is, as a team much better. Someone said Mike White is fine with the singles and the doubles all day and letting the defense do the dirty work. You know, Zach Wilson, he's more of the gunslinger looking for the home run ball, and that just wasn't complimentary football the way they're designed. You mentioned Robert Saleh, too. Great job taking that worst defense in the NFL last year, turning it into what it is now. He's also won 3 games with 3 different quarterbacks in the meantime. One good draft can really help turn things around. You're seeing what having a shutdown cornerback can do for his defense and the things he can drop, knowing he can leave Sauce out on that island over there. And of course, the catalyst to the whole thing, linebacker Chaz Surratt. I mean, what a find after the Vikings dumped him to scoop him up and turn him into the game changer. Obviously joking, but he's done a great job with that defense. And now I think Mike White, again, fits the blueprint of how they want to win football games more than Wilson. So don't let the backup narrative fool you. I think the Vikings have their work cut out for them for sure. Coming up next, we're looking at the scouting report on Jets quarterback Mike White and Sauce Gardner coming to town. But first, Vikes now 10-1 to win the Super Bowl after that victory over the Patriots Thanksgiving night. Vikings open this week versus the Jets, 3-point favorites at home at the bank, over under starting at 42 points. Make sure to keep tabs all season long and check those odds out and more with BetOnline. BetOnline.net, fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Stats, news, info, you want it, they got it. NFL, NHL, NBA, even MMA and UFC. BetOnline makes betting easy and is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Go to BetOnline.net today to learn more. That's BetOnline.net, where the game starts. All right. You know anything about Mike White? I mean, I remember he came out in 2018. He had that big baseball background. That's the one big thing I remember. Remember that 2018 quarterback draft class loaded at the top. Lamar, Baker, Josh Rosen, kind of the bust of the group. Josh Allen, of course. And then there was a big drop-off, and then you had Mason Rudolph went in the second round. But Mike White goes in the 5th round of the Cowboys. Had this big baseball background. In fact, a lot of people thought he could go the MLB route and try to go pro as a pitcher. You see the fastball on tape, kind of resurrected that Jets offense last week. Great stats in the rain, 300 yards, 3 TDs, 150 passer rating. You know anything else about Mike White or what you expect for this Vikings defense and how they can prepare? And remember, let's just take a step back. Robert Saleh has not committed to Mike White yet. He came out yesterday and said, we're just going to take this thing day by day. How do you prepare if you're the Vikings defense, knowing you got the gunslinger on one hand versus Mike White on the other hand? What do you do?
I think you just prepare for what the Jets do on offense. You know, what's interesting about what the Jets do on offense is it's kind of similar to what Kevin O'Connell wants to do. Their offensive coordinator, Mike LaFleur. Mike LaFleur came up under the, McVay, Shanahan tree. And so they're kind of used to what they do. Maybe you look at like what the Packers might do with his brother, Matt LaFleur. And you look at what Shanahan likes to do in San Francisco. And you look at KOC and what he likes to do with the Vikings. And you're like, oh, okay, I could see some similarities here. I think they just prepare for that offense. Don't know a whole lot about Mike White. He's come in and played well in the times that he did come in. What was interesting is the Jets decided not to go back to Joe Flacco. And Joe Flacco played a pretty good game the first week of the season, and they played well without Zach Wilson as he recovered from that knee injury that he suffered in the preseason. And so I thoroughly expect the Jets to, establish the run and really just kind of make it easy on Mike White and, maybe allow him to make a couple plays here or there. And so I think the Vikings can't afford to get caught flat-footed here. We know what happens. We know what happens when the Vikings play these backup or third-string quarterbacks. Things just tend to happen. You saw what Skylar Thompson was doing with the Dolphins before he went down with the injury. Teddy Two Gloves came in relief and kind of balled out with Miami. So there have been some times that, you know, they've seen some struggles against these backup quarterbacks. So you get a little nervous there. But, you know, I think if you play the game that they know how to play, and you do get some help back with the Caleb Evans maybe coming back, and, you know, some help for that secondary, which has struggled this year, I think they have a chance to kind of keep them, you know, at bay a little bit. But even Mac Jones, who was struggling, people were maybe calling for his head. He comes into the bank, throws for 300 plus yards. He looks phenomenal. It was like a 115 plus passer rating. So it leaves you a little bit of reason to be concerned a little bit. And I think if you're talking about the long term of the Vikings this season, how far they could go, I think that's one of the things that you get a little bit afraid of. It's like if that pass rush doesn't get there in time, they can kind of get gashed in that pass defense. And that kind of scares you when you talk about maybe them going far this season.
I remember at Western Kentucky, the dude took 46 sacks, not a lot of mobility, pure pocket guy, kind of Kirk Cousins-ish, but elite arm talent. But when that pocket gets muddy, when he gets pressure in his face, the mechanics fall apart a little bit, and it relies on, again, that fastball, that baseball arm strength. So if you can muddy that pocket a little bit, get after it. I know Za'Darius is hobbling around on one knee, but honestly, edge rusher for the Vikings, maybe their best depth position. DJ Wanham, Patrick Jones, obviously Daniil Hunter on the other side. Plenty of depth to go around. Maybe a little rotation Sunday versus the Jets. Try to get after Mike White. All right, to basketball we go. My, oh my, Reg. Wolves get thumped last night. Washington, 142-127. Top 5 starters, when you look at the box score, plus minus, all double digits. In the negative, not what you want. But more importantly, the Wolves with a major injury scare as Cat goes down. He leaves the court, goes to the locker room with an apparent calf injury. Initial reports saying Cat did not suffer severe damage, but I mean, you're my go-to here. Any latest on him? What's the best and I guess worst case scenario here with this massive big name health scare for the Wolves?
Everybody's just kind of holding their breath for this MRI. They said that there's initial optimism that he didn't suffer something more serious than that right calf strain. And I just don't know where they come to that conclusion from. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. So I can't, you know, say what their telltale signs are that something is significant or not. But I think what really kind of just gave you some imagery was him trying to get back on defense. And it looks like he tripped. You know, that's kind of like that telltale sign. And he turned around as he kind of lost his footing a little bit. He turned around like, who kicked me? Or like, who's back there? Like, they said that's kind of what it feels like when you tear an Achilles. And he went down on the court, couldn't put any pressure on his right leg at all as he's getting carried off the court. And when he got down on the court, he was like grasping at that right calf, which I don't know, if you're grasping at straws, you're like, oh, okay, he's not grabbing at the ankle area, he's grabbing at the calf. But honestly, you know, with seeing different things, what we've seen before, I think back to Kevin Durant. He had the right calf injury, and he came back premature. In that finals game, he came back cooking, and then all of a sudden, it popped, and it you know, he had the Achilles injury, and we saw, you know, he was out for that next year, missed the whole next season. I guess what you're scared of is did Cat tear his Achilles, man? Like, I think he was starting to try to get into a groove. I think it's been a little bit difficult, this transition with him and Rudy, and him just trying to figure out like his place on this team, this new look team. And I think he was starting to try to figure some things out. And this is a big blow. You know, they just signed him to the big Supermax contract. I guess the tough part is, you know, this injury could be something catastrophic. It could be something serious. Or if it is just that right calf strain, like that's still nothing to sneeze at, because like I said, he couldn't put any pressure on his right leg as he was going off the court. And we've kind of seen these injuries before. I think Anthony Davis had this injury a couple years ago. And that's just something you have to be very, very delicate with, because if he did not tear his Achilles, what you don't want is for him to rush back on that right calf strain and do something to then go ahead and tear. That's like that precursor to tearing the Achilles. They just all kind of seem to work in that same, symmetry or chemistry, if you will. And so I'm concerned about Cat. I hope it's not as serious as it looked, but that was one heck of a scary injury for him. And I know all within the Wolves are just kind of holding their breath right now, because if he goes out, that's a significant blow to what they're trying to do this season.
So best and worst case scenarios, just real quick. Worst case, obviously, is out for the year. That would be a massive just heartbreaker. Best case, as you just mentioned, you don't want to rush him back. So I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, something in that range. I'm just throwing out a general ballpark. You want to rest him. What is this Wolves roster and lineup going to look like without Cat? Obviously, Naz Reid, solid center backup. But now what does Finch do with this rotation, and how does he try to put the pieces of this puzzle now without Cat together?
I think maybe you try to go small in that lineup, and you really play off the pick and roll with Rudy now. That they got him. They got 2 all-star centers playing next to each other. If one is out for a significant period of time, now you have to play through the other and just try to make it work. And I'm interested to see how that looks. You talk about D'Lo, Ant, Jaden McDaniels, maybe a Naz Reid in there, or maybe you go smaller, you play a couple guards, maybe you throw Austin Rivers in there in the starting lineup, or maybe, you go Jalen Noel in the starting lineup, and maybe put, I don't know, Jaden McDaniels at the 4. I don't know. These are some things that, they've kind of went all in, pushed their chips in at going with this big lineup, and we've seen it work for other teams, just kind of slow to work for the Wolves. I think about maybe like what the Cavs have with Mobley and with Allen playing together, those 2 twin towers, and it's working there, but we didn't get a chance to necessarily see it work well here without, Cat going down with that injury. And so I think that would probably open up things for Ant to go ahead and become the superstar player that people think that he can become. Put the Popeyes down, as Cat said, or you keep the Popeyes. I ain't mad at the Popeyes. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty delicious. You still got to try that, by the way, Luke. I need a report.
Hand over the Popeyes to me. I'll take care of that for you.
Yeah, I need a report. But I think this will be Ant's time to shine and really kind of lead this team 30, 40-point efforts on a night in and night out basis. I think he has it in him, and that's kind of what they need to see.
Yeah, find the positive. Maybe this is a great opportunity for Ant to kind of take that next step and become the leader of this team. No rest for the wicked. Wolves play tomorrow night in the backyard at Target Center versus the Memphis Grizzlies in that dramatic rematch from their first round exit last year. We're going to catch up on that as we all collectively hold our breath and get more Cat news later today. We'll catch in on that tomorrow. Plus, Sauce Gardner versus Justin Jefferson matchup. We're going to break that down a little bit tomorrow as well. That's a wrap today. Remember, like, rate, review, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Join us every day for your 30-minute episode of everything Minnesota sports. We're a podcast too, free and available all platforms. Subscribe, drop us a 5-star review, and find us streaming on your Roku or Amazon Fire Stick devices. Just look out for our Locked On Sports Minnesota app there as well. That's the man, Reggie Wilson, on Twitter. Check him out at Reggie Wilson TV, and check him out every night up on KARE 11. Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Special thanks to the producer, Matt DeBritz. We're back tomorrow with another episode of Superior Sports Talk presented by Locked On Sports Minnesota. For Reggie, I'm Luke. Until tomorrow, signing out.
Be blessed. Spread love today.